The elegant dining room of Le Maison buzzed with carefully curated success. Crystal glasses clinked, designer labels gleamed, and my family's particular brand of passive-aggressive pride filled the air. My father's 60th birthday celebration was exactly what you'd expect from the Petersons, perfectly orchestrated wealth with a side of subtle superiority. I adjusted my simple black turtleneck, bought from a boutique that would have horrified my mother if she knew the price, and took my usual seat at the far end of the table. The family disappointment's designated spot. Emma, darling, my mother's voice carried that familiar note of concern that felt more like criticism. You could have dressed up a bit. It's your father's birthday. I glanced down at my outfit, fighting back a smile. The turtleneck probably cost more than her entire ensemble, but they'd never know that. Just like they'd never bothered to ask what I really did with my computer hobby for the past 5 years. My brother James arrived last as usual, his Armani suit practically radiating self-importance. As the CEO of Peterson International Banking, he was everything I supposedly wasn't: successful, ambitious, properly focused on the family legacy. Still playing with your little coding projects? He smirked, settling into his power position near Dad. What is it now, websites for local businesses? I took a slow sip of water, letting his words roll off me like they had for years. If he only knew about the meeting I'd had this morning with the Federal Reserve, or the papers sitting in my office waiting for tomorrow's signatures. Let's celebrate, Dad announced, raising his glass. To family, to success, and to the future of Peterson International Banking. Everyone raised their glasses. I noticed James's hand trembled slightly. Interesting. Speaking of the future, my mother added, carefully adjusting her Cartier bracelet. Emma dear, we've been thinking about your situation. There was my situation. That's what they'd been calling my decision to leave proper banking and start my own technology company. 5 years of subtle jabs, worried phone calls, and not-so-subtle hints about real careers with actual futures. The family name means something, James chimed in, cutting into his Wagyu steak. And frankly, your little startup experiments are becoming embarrassing. My phone buzzed silently. A message from Sarah, my COO. Federal Reserve approval confirmed. Documents ready for tomorrow's acquisition. I checked my watch. 16 hours until everything changed. Actually, my mother brightened, we have wonderful news. James has agreed to create a position for you at the bank. Junior Digital Services Coordinator. Perfect for someone with your interests. I studied her face, wondering if she'd even recognize the woman who would be featured in tomorrow's Wall Street Journal. The one they were calling a financial technology revolutionary, the architect of modern banking's future. Did you know, I said carefully, that the banking industry is about to experience its biggest technological shift since the invention of ATMs? James laughed dismissively. Please. I run one of the largest banks in the country. I think I'd know about any major industry changes. My phone buzzed again. Sarah, Peterson International's stock down 3% in after-hours trading. They're starting to notice the liquidity issues. The digital revolution is coming, I continued softly. Banks that don't adapt won't survive. And I suppose your little coding projects will save us all? James sneered, but I caught the flash of worry in his eyes. Emma, Dad leaned forward, we're trying to help. This position James is offering, it's a chance to be part of something real. I thought about the documents waiting in my office. About how real their help would seem tomorrow. Something real, I repeated quietly. Like Peterson International's current liquidity ratio? James's fork clattered against his plate. What did you say? Nothing, I smiled, standing smoothly. I should head out. Early meeting tomorrow. Sit down, Mom commanded. We haven't finished discussing your future. Actually, I gathered my things. I think tomorrow will explain my future better than I ever could. What's that supposed to mean? James demanded, his voice carrying an edge of panic. But I was already walking away, leaving them to their expensive wines and comfortable assumptions. In 16 hours, they'd learn exactly what I'd built while they were busy dismissing me. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. I sat in my real office, not the small shared workspace they assumed I used, but the entire top floor of the gleaming Atlas Tower downtown. Sarah brought in the morning's market reports. Peterson International's stock down another 5% in pre-market trading, she noted. They're definitely feeling the squeeze. I nodded, reviewing the final acquisition documents. 5 years of careful planning, of letting them underestimate me, had led to this moment. Ms. Peterson, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The Federal Reserve representatives are here for the signing. I stood, smoothing my black turtleneck. Show them in. And Sarah? Make sure the Peterson International board members have arrived downstairs. They're all here, she smiled. Including your brother. He looks nervous. He should be, I murmured, watching the city wake up through my wall of windows. He's about to learn why you should never underestimate the quiet one in the family. The Federal Reserve officials filed in, followed by my legal team. The documents were laid out, each page representing another piece of the trap I'd carefully laid while playing the role of family disappointment. My phone buzzed, a message from James. Emergency board meeting at Peterson International. Major liquidity crisis. Where did all our digital assets go? I smiled, slipping the phone into my pocket. He'd find out soon enough exactly where they went. And exactly who now controlled his precious bank's future. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't in proving people wrong. It's in letting them discover just how right you've been all along. And I was about to be very, very right. The aftermath hit like a controlled demolition. As I signed the final document transferring control of Peterson International's digital infrastructure to my company, Quantum Core Technologies, the financial world exploded. 47 missed calls from James. 31 from Mom. 52 from Dad. 186 text messages and counting. I sat in my office watching the morning news coverage flood every financial channel while Sarah brought in the latest reports. Tech genius Emma Peterson revolutionizes banking. Quantum Core's digital banking platform becomes industry standard. Peterson International faces crisis as sister company takes control. Your brothers tried to enter the building 4 times, Sarah reported, setting down my coffee. Security had to threaten him with trespassing charges. I picked up my phone to read the latest message from James. What have you done? This is impossible. Our digital infrastructure. Everything's locked. The whole system's running through your servers. Then from Mom. Darling, we're all so shocked. Why didn't you tell us? The ladies at the club are calling you a visionary. Dad's message was shorter. How long have you been planning this? I set the phone down and turned to the wall of screens displaying real-time data from every major bank in the country. All of them now dependent on Quantum Core's revolutionary blockchain banking platform. The same platform James had dismissed as my little coding project. Miss Peterson, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The Peterson International Board has requested an emergency meeting. They're insistent. I checked the market data. Peterson International's stock had plummeted 30% since opening. Their digital banking services, now controlled by Quantum Core, were the only thing keeping them from complete collapse. Send them up, I said. And Sarah, bring in the integration proposal. The board members filed in looking shell-shocked. James entered last, his perfect suit wrinkled, his usual arrogance replaced by barely controlled panic. What did you do? He demanded. How did you get control of our entire digital infrastructure? I turned my laptop screen toward them, showing a simple document dated 5 years ago. Remember when you asked me to look over the bank's new digital services contract? The one you couldn't be bothered to understand because it was just computer stuff? His face paled. That was a standard service agreement. No, I corrected. That was a master service agreement giving Quantum Core complete control over your digital banking platform. You signed it yourself, James. You just never bothered to read what your disappointing sister put in front of you. This is illegal, he sputtered. We'll sue. On what grounds? I stood, walking to my wall of windows. Everything was properly disclosed, properly signed, properly filed. You just didn't think your little sister's coding projects were worth your attention. The board chairman cleared his throat. Miss Peterson, what exactly do you want? I turned back to face them. Integration. Peterson International becomes part of Quantum Core's global banking network. You keep your name, your basic operations, but your digital services, which account for 80% of modern banking, run through us. Or, James whispered, or you try to rebuild your entire digital infrastructure from scratch. While your competitors all use our superior platform. While your stock continues to plummet. While your clients move to banks that can offer modern services. My phone buzzed, a message from Dad. We need to talk. Family dinner tonight. I showed the message to James. Interesting how quickly playing with computers becomes a serious business discussion when billions are at stake. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all seen the morning's market data. The papers are ready, I nodded to Sarah, who distributed folders to each board member. Full integration. Fair terms. Or you can try to survive in a digital world without digital infrastructure. You planned this, James accused. All those years playing the quiet disappointment. No, I corrected. I built something revolutionary. You just never bothered to notice because it didn't fit your idea of success. As the board members reviewed the documents, my mother's latest text flashed on my phone. Darling, the Peterson Women's Charity Board would love to have you speak at next month's gala. Theme: Women in Technology. Perfect timing. I smiled wryly. Amazing how quickly embarrassing hobby became visionary leadership, when the numbers got big enough. The terms are fair, the board chairman finally said. More than fair considering our position. Sign, James said quietly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. We don't have a choice. As the papers were signed, Sarah brought in the latest market reports. Quantum Core's stock had soared another 40%. Every major bank in the country was calling about our platform. Welcome to the future of banking, I said as the board members filed out. The one you couldn't see coming because you were too busy looking down on it. James lingered behind, staring at the empire I'd built while he was busy mocking my career choices. The family dinner tonight, he said. Will you come? I looked at him thoughtfully. Will you be ready to actually listen this time? He nodded slowly, humbled at last. I think we all will. The rest of the day passed in a blur of press conferences and integration meetings. By evening, Peterson International was officially part of Quantum Core's network, their stock stabilizing on the news. As I prepared to leave for the family dinner, Sarah brought in one last report. Every major financial publication wants an interview, she said. They're calling it the most brilliant takeover in banking history. I smiled, straightening my black turtleneck. Not a takeover. An evolution. They just didn't evolve fast enough. Looking out over the city, I watched the lights come on in buildings that now ran on my technology. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more family drama, more attempts to rewrite history. But for now I was exactly where I needed to be. Because sometimes success isn't about proving your family wrong. It's about being so right that they have no choice but to admit they were wrong. The family dinner that evening was nothing like my father's birthday celebration. Gone were the subtle jabs and condescending smiles. Instead, a heavy silence filled our private room at La Maison as my family struggled to reconcile their narrative about me with the reality of what I'd built. The caviar is excellent, Mom said weakly, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Though I suppose you could buy the entire restaurant now. Actually, I set down my water glass. Quantum Core acquired it last month. Along with most of the high-end properties in the financial district. James choked on his wine. What else do you own that we don't know about? The better question, I replied calmly, is what don't I own that you thought you did? Dad cleared his throat, looking older than he had at his birthday party just yesterday. The digital banking platform, how long have you been developing it? Remember when I was 16? When I presented that blockchain banking concept at the family meeting. I watched their faces as recognition dawned. The one you all laughed at and told me to focus on real banking instead? That little project? James whispered. That became a revolutionary financial technology that now controls 60% of global digital banking transactions? I finished for him. Yes. That little project. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. Asian markets just opened. Quantum Core up another 25%. Peterson International stabilizing under our umbrella. Mom reached for her champagne with trembling hands. But darling, why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. Like you helped when I wanted to study computer science instead of finance? I asked quietly. Or when I turned down James's offer to be a junior clerk. Or yesterday, when you were all so concerned about my situation? The silence that followed was deafening. We were wrong, Dad said finally, his voice carrying the weight of years of dismissal. We were so focused on traditional banking that we couldn't see the future when it was right in front of us. No, I corrected gently. You couldn't see me. Because I didn't fit your definition of success. James stared into his wine glass. The integration team found something today. In the digital archives. Every major innovation Peterson International claimed in the past 5 years came from the service agreement you signed with my little startup. I nodded. Every digital advancement that kept the bank relevant? That was me, quietly modernizing our family legacy while you took the credit. And now? Mom asked hesitantly. What happens to the Peterson name? I pulled out my tablet, bringing up Quantum Core's latest market valuation. The Peterson name stays. But it becomes part of something bigger. Something that looks forward instead of back. And James. Dad glanced at my brother, who seemed to shrink in his expensive suit. Remains CEO of Peterson International's traditional banking division, I said. But he'll need to earn his position this time. No more coasting on birthright. James nodded slowly. I suppose I should learn what blockchain actually means. You should learn a lot of things, I agreed. Starting with how to recognize innovation even when it comes in unexpected packages. My phone buzzed again. The Wall Street Journal wanted an interview for their Innovators Who Changed Finance series. The working title, The Quiet Revolutionary, How Emma Peterson Transformed Banking While Her Family Wasn't Looking. There's something else you should know, I said, setting down my phone. Quantum Core isn't just about banking. Tomorrow we announce our expansion into artificial intelligence and quantum computing. More computer stuff? Mom asked weakly. No, I smiled. The future. The question is, are you ready to be part of it this time? The next few months transformed everything. Peterson International thrived under Quantum Core's umbrella, with James actually learning the technology he'd once dismissed. Mom stopped arranging suitable marriages and started arranging tech innovation panels. Dad, finally retiring for real, admitted that his greatest legacy wasn't the bank he'd built, but the daughter he'd underestimated. 6 months later, I stood in my office reviewing the latest global expansion plans. The Peterson International building, now just one small part of my larger empire, had been renovated into a cutting-edge tech hub. On my wall hung 3 items. The blockchain banking concept I'd presented at 16, the service agreement James had signed without reading, and a simple black turtleneck, the one from that last family dinner. My phone buzzed, a message about tomorrow's World Economic Forum keynote speech. The topic? The power of being underestimated, how innovation thrives in the shadows of doubt. I smiled, remembering all those family meetings where they'd ignored my ideas, dismissed my vision, relegated me to the far end of the table. They never noticed that the quiet one they called a disappointment was actually building the future. Their mistake. My triumph. Because sometimes success isn't about proving your family wrong. It's about being so undeniably right that they have no choice but to see you clearly at last. And as I looked out over my city, watching the lights come on in buildings that now ran on my technology, I knew this was just the beginning. The quiet revolution I'd started in banking was spreading to every industry, every sector, every corner of the global economy. They'd called me a disappointment at my father's birthday. Now they called me a visionary. But I was still the same person, still focused, still innovative, still quietly building the future while others talked about the past. Because that's the thing about real success. It doesn't need anyone's permission to change the world. It just needs someone brave enough to be underestimated until the perfect moment to prove everyone wrong.